Good afternoon, it's Lee Cassidy from Tactile Technology, and today we're doing a presentation talking about how CCTV and AI can be used in logistics and a manufacturing environment. I've also got with me Dee Panchal of Vicada, who seemed to have disappeared, and she seems to have come back now, so we'll bring her back onto the screen. And we're going to go through a little bit of slides, and then what we're going to do is have some demonstrations as we go along. And he's going to help doing those demonstrations. But we're going to talk in language that's about manufacturing and logistics and things that we've seen with our customers that are making a major difference in what they can actually do around their sites. So I'll bring up on the slides to start with. And Dee, do you want to do a quick introduction to yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Lee. So, hi, everybody. My name is Dee Panchal. I work at Vicada as a solutions engineer. So, I help support partners like Lee at Tactile and other numerous partners to make sure that we fully understand Vicada and we're able to confidently teach you about it too.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about is harnessing the power of this. And a lot of people see CCTV, and we're going to talk about access control as well, but CCTV they see purely as a security product. So perimeter security, cameras out there that's going to capture someone breaking in or stealing something and go back afterwards. But what we've seen is the major drive towards health and safety and also HR capabilities as well. So there's a big change in that. And what we're going to do is go through some key areas that we think are of advantage to you as organizations in manufacturing logistics. You should have on your screen the ability to make a comment. So if you've got any question at any time, at the end we're going to go on and do a Q&A at the end. But if you've got any questions about any particular areas we're talking about, drop them into the comments section, and if it's relevant at the point in time, we'll maybe answer it there, or we may leave it to the end of the Q&A section. So please just drop in your comments as you go along. So first of all, we're going to go through the agenda. So on the CCTV side, we're going to talk about line crossing and loitering, and these are types of capabilities that we've got on the Vicada CCTV of different functions, and we'll talk about those key things that we can do. Originally they were set up to be a part of a security platform for the alarm, but we can use them now in other ways, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. We'll also talk about archiving and incident management. So archiving is taking a piece of footage that you may want to keep for the future because something particularly happened, or you may want to share it with someone. But more importantly, you might be actually tracking an incident or something. So we talk about incident management and what that does for you. We're also going to touch on AI search. So you're actually using natural English language search capabilities to find things, to understand what's happening in your environment. And there's some unique things we can do around health and safety with that piece as well. We're also going to talk about GDPR, because a lot of organizations we're dealing with at the moment are finding that a real challenge. Their legal team internally or their external legal or HR teams are finding GDPR around CCTV especially a bit of a challenge, but also if they're using cloud-based services for access control, again, it as a challenge. So we're going to talk about some of the key things that we can actually do to help you around that GDPR piece. And then we're going to have a demo. So Dee will go through a demonstration of all of those capabilities. The GDPR, we're just going to look at some key things that we're going to discuss in there rather than a demonstration, but you're going to see something. What we're going to do then is jump over to access control and talk. And again, predominantly people are using things like Paxton, Net2 and those kind of products, and they're quite limited in what you've got, and there's very little integration with other systems. So what we're going to do is show you how the tight integration helps, but on the other side we're going to talk about some of the things that actually makes a big difference. So first person is going to be one of the things we're going to talk about, and that makes a real difference with access control, especially around safety and security, and we'll come on to that in a little while. We're also going to look at how you can restrict access to certain areas, based on people's skills and capabilities. And also lockdowns we're going to talk about, because I think lockdowns are quite important nowadays, especially with Martin's Law. Now that's come out recently, how we can actually protect our staff from either a dangerous event within the environment. So if it's a steelworks or other manufacturing facility, you may want to stop people getting there, but also there's other reasons you might want to lock down, and we'll talk about those in more depth. Another challenge a lot of organizations face is how do you make sure everybody there when you've had a fire or other kind of emergency? And we're going to talk through roll call and how that can help you with this access control capability as well. And then we're going to have another demo to actually show you what you can do in all of those 4 areas with the Verkada platform. So that's what we're planning to talk about. If there are any things that come up as we go along that you want to know more information, if we've got time, we maybe drop it into the Q&A section at the end. We plan to do about an hour and then about 30 minutes for Q&A if needs be. We may finish earlier than that if you've got enough information, but if you've got questions or you want to see things, we've got another 30 minutes potentially to demonstrate other things if needs be. So first we're going to talk about that CCTV side, is the line crossing and loitering. And what we things like searching for people or vehicles. So if we've got, say, an entrance way into a yard area, or we've got an entrance into a warehouse, we've got a roller shutter door, what we can do is actually use a line search to identify people or vehicles that have passed through that area. We can do it both in either direction or both directions. If you're looking for something specifically, we can actually draw a line across a gateway, and we can actually look for particular vehicles that are coming in and see that footage straight away. So really quickly find information about what's happening on the site on people or vehicles. The other thing that we're using it for is one-way roads, because if you've got a roadway around your site and you don't really want people. Question from Mike Speller, so I'll just answer that. Just to let everybody know, I'm just going to bring my mouse onto the right screen. So Mike Speller's asked about the slides. What we'll do is make sure everybody's got a copy of the slides afterwards, and we'll send those out to everybody who's registered and joined, and we can send to anyone else who messages us if they're watching through LinkedIn at the moment. So one-way roads, if you want to make sure that people are driving the correct way around a one-way system. So what we can do is use line crossing events to actually understand if people are driving the wrong way around a one-way system. So as soon as it goes across that line, it'll actually alert you, because we can do line crossing in 2 ways: searching for things, so going back in time and looking what happened, but we can also set line cross events as actually an alert, so we can draw across the line, say vehicles in this direction, which is against the one-way system, and if anybody does drive across the wrong way down that one-way system, we can then distribute that notification to the right people. That could be to your security. It could be to somebody who's head of safety. It could be to someone in HR to get them to look and find out who it is and make sure it doesn't happen again. But depending on what you want to do, we can actually do it to make sure people know that they're driving the wrong way around a one-way system. The next thing is warehouse paths. So a lot of nowadays, you're actually setting up one-way runs for things like K-lifts and forklifts, so they can actually move around safely within the warehouse environment. So again, we can actually use cameras internally to do the same thing and actually watch for vehicles. In this case, it would be forklifts or K-lifts or other alternative lifting platforms that are moving around in the warehouse, and we can watch to see if they're going the wrong direction in those one-way paths within that logistics environment. We can also look for people in maneuvering areas, and this is quite important. If you've got large vehicle areas, so you've got either drop-off or loading bays, you might want to ensure that people aren't actually standing around in space. So what we can use is the loiter capability to actually understand if someone stood there, but also we can have line draws again to see if a person walks into that space. So we can draw a perimeter around a maneuvering area, and so as a person walks into that space, we get an alert, or we can actually draw a loitering area, and we can actually look to see if someone pops into that space and is there for more than a minute or 2 minutes up to 5 minutes, and then you get the notification if they've been there for a period of time. Again, really important that we don't have people stood in vehicle maneuvering areas unless they're supposed to be there. So that's the other thing, that we may have people that we don't want to be there, and we can have a look and see if that's the case. Moving on, we're going to talk about archiving and incident management. So archiving is where we can actually take a piece of footage so we can keep what you need going forward. Commonly, people will have about 30 days worth of footage across their whole site or multiple sites, but they may have certain pieces they want to keep for longer. So what archiving allows us to do is to actually take a piece of that footage, and we can decide how much footage we want. So when we come to the demonstration, Deal show you how you can actually select how much time before the particular incident, how much afterwards. You can add tags and many other things to it, and we'll show you how you can actually archive that. But the other thing we can do once we've archived it is we can share it with other people as well. But one thing that we can do that's quite unique is combining footage. So what we can do is take the footage from multiple cameras, up to 4, because beyond 4 it's going to be difficult to see it on one screen. But we can have anything from 1 to 4 cameras, and we can have them synchronized so we can actually show a flow of an incident. So a vehicle coming in through a gate, driving down a particular roadway, coming into a moving area, and maybe clipping a vehicle that's parked there, or something more severe, hitting a pedestrian or something. So we can actually watch all of that and combine that footage together, so that when we share it with other people, they can see it how we've seen it. So they can see all the components together, all the different pieces of footage, and it's synchronized. So combine that footage is quite important. We did some work with a client who had a roller shutter door damaged, and it was so much easier to see it from 3 different positions, outside, inside, and from a different angle inside, to understand what was happening when that roller shutter door was hit by a forklift, and you could see why it happened, and then you could deal with the situation later through HR with the individual that caused that damage. Sharing with others has always been a challenge with CCTV. If you're familiar with traditional CCTV systems with digital video recorders or network video recorders, it can be real challenge, one, to find the footage, but then to actually get that footage in a way that you can deliver it to someone, the police, the health and safety executive, whoever you need to provide that footage to. So what we've got here is a really simple way. Once you've created that archive, you can provide that information, that video footage, in the way that you've seen it, to anybody using their telephone number, email address, or you can create them as a contact on the system if you share it on a regular basis. What they also see is it the way you've seen it, with all the same controls and things. So it's not just a piece of raw video, it's actually a controlled piece of video in a controlled environment that you can play forward and backward, move to particular places in time and things. And you can also see any of the notes or tags that have been put to that archive as well. So if it's a particular thing and you want to describe it, you can put that in the notes section, explain exactly what happened, so they can see that and read it at the same time as view the footage that's there. The other thing is you can see when they've actually seen the footage. So in the audit logs, and we'll talk about more in the GDPR section, you can see if they've looked at it. You can see who's looked at it, when they've looked at it, and you can also stop them downloading it as well, because maybe you want to keep control of it. So archiving, we'll talk about something else later about blurring of faces because of GDPR, but again, that's all built into that archive pieces. But it gets you away from having to use DVDs or USB drives to actually download footage and put that footage on, then post it. It could get lost. You've got no control of it once it's left your premise. In this way, at any point in time, you can share that footage for anything from a day to 365 days if you choose to. But any point in time, you can revoke access to it. So, right, I don't want them to have access to that footage, and you can take it away really simply at that point in time. Keeps you in full control of everything that you're doing with your system. So it makes it much easier for you to control, the information that's shared and who it's shared with. AI. So AI has been a big thing of late, and we've seen a lot of things about AI and how it's going to take away jobs and how it's going to end up being, Skynet, and we're all going to die. But AI can be a really useful tool. And what we can do with AI is use it for natural English searches. So we can actually use a piece of English to actually then find footage based on that English search. So it could be, show me all red vans that have arrived today. So you can see all of those red vans that have come onto site. It could be a particular person with a description of their clothing that they're wearing. So really simple to effectively find information that you want. But one of the key things is using what we call logical operators, and, or, not. Yeah, you can use these operators now within that search capabilities. So if we're looking at from an HSE perspective, we might want to know everybody who's on site that's wearing high vis, say. So show me all video footage of people wearing high vis. Also, everybody who's wearing a hard hat. But wouldn't it be much better using a logical operator to actually say, show me everybody who's on site in these camera views, so these particular cameras, who has he's not wearing a high vis and he's not wearing a hard hat. Things like safety boots are challenging to see with video. Even normal eyes, you can't always work out if somebody's wearing safety boots, but high vis jackets and helmets are really simple to identify. So we can say, tell me everybody who's not wearing or not wearing. So we can actually see either of them. So it should pick up everyone who's got either not a hard hat on or not a high vis jacket on. So using those logical operators, we can create searches that really work, and we can save those searches as well. The other thing we can do with AI is we can actually create alerts as well. So not just searching with them, but actually using it as alert. So I mentioned we might look in a particular area because we may need PPE in that area, but outside of that area we don't. But what we can do is say any of the cameras that are in the area where we definitely need PPE, we can actually set an alert based on a natural English search using AI. So that if somebody walks into that space and they don't have the appropriate PPE on, it will alert and tell us that someone's gone into that space. Again, I need to be clear with this. It is AI. It's not 100% accurate, but it's going to give you a reasonably good level of understanding of people in the environment that aren't wearing the correct PPE. So a really good way to help your business be compliant around PPE. And it is a challenge. You need too many people to be able to walk around and see and check everybody on site. But having the cameras looking for you, it's really good. But the other thing you can do with that search capability is maybe do audits on particular days as well. So maybe once a week go and do a quick audit to see who's not wearing their correct PPE on that day. Next thing is GDPR. So we're getting close to our first demo from D, but this piece is quite important for a lot of organizations. So GDPR was brought in originally to stop the public being hassled by third-party organizations, but it tends to be used for lots of other reasons nowadays around privacy. But one of the key things with the platform is we've got really granular role-based access. So if you want someone who can only access the alarm system to be able to put code in, to be able to arm and disarm the alarm system, they can have that. If you can want someone who can only live view certain cameras, again, they can have that, all the way through to a full administrator. So you've got different levels of granularity, so you can give people only the amount of access that they require on the system. But again, there is a full audit trail. So you can go into the audit logs and see exactly who's been on the system and what they've actually done. And it shows you which camera they've been on and which footage they've watched. So it's quite easy to understand exactly what's been happening on the system. So it makes you really compliant with GDPR. Another area that people talk about with GDPR is where the data's stored. In this case, it's all stored in a European data center, so there is no issues with GDPR with it as well. And that's a question we get on a regular basis. Where is the actual video footage stored? And it's in a European data center, so that makes it much easier. Blurring faces I mentioned before. So if you had, say, a large screen that's actually showing footage in a particular area, one of the problems might be that the members of the public could see that screen. And part of the GDPR piece is you should be protecting the identity of the public. So if somebody's walking past and they can see other people on the screens, on different cameras around the site, we need to do something about that. So one of the capabilities within the system is blur faces on live view. So that large screen that's showing the reception area or external view or in a particular area, it'll actually blur automatically every person's face that walks around. So it's, as they move around, it tracks that where their face is and makes sure it's blurred at all times. So again, protecting their privacy in that space. The other thing we can do is blur with archives as well. So you imagine that your business has got a public-facing entrance. A couple of your employees are stood outside having a chat, and something happens. Someone, is aggressive. Someone steals something. Something happens, and you want to share that footage with the police or someone else. What we can do here is selectively blur the faces. So we can just make sure that your maybe 2 employees have their faces blurred, but anyone else who's involved that we need to be able to identify aren't blurred. And again, it's simple. Turn it on, select the people you want to blur, and it's really straightforward to do. So not technical to do. So what we're going to do now is going to go over to a demo. So I'm glad Dee's appeared back on the screen because I was panicked there because she wasn't around. But I'm going to switch over to Dee. I'm going to spend maybe 10, 15 minutes going through some pieces around what we've covered so far, and then we'll move to the access control piece afterwards. So I shall stop sharing my screen.
Yeah, sure. No, I was listening. It was very interesting, that presentation. So that was great stuff. So let's actually show you what that looks like in action. So let's jump to Verkada command. So hopefully you can see my command screen. Is that correct?
I can.
Brilliant.
Hopefully everyone else see that. Mike, can you see that? I'm picking on Mike because he made a comment earlier, so hopefully he's typing away. He's not pressed send yet, so but I can see it, so I'm sure everyone else can.
Brilliant. Okay, let's kick off. So cameras are kind of
Mike said yes, he can see it.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, good news. So cameras are sort of the bread and butter of Verkada. We started off with cameras, but now you can see that we have a whole sort of page here of different products that we can manage from command. So here I'm logged on using Google Chrome, so I didn't have to download any special software because we're cloud-based. And what we'll start with is the line crossing and the loitering that Lee mentioned earlier. So particularly within manufacturing, you want to know if someone's been in an area that they shouldn't have been in. And the easiest way to do that is to show you on one of our cameras that we have here. So these are all cameras in the US, so we can see it's still quite dark. It's early morning. So let's jump to London, which I have access to here, and we'll click on our front door. So this is our front door in London. This is where we come into Verkada office every day. And if you just wanted to, generally see where people have been, not setting up any alerts just yet, but have a look how people have entered the office. You could do a motion search, but you can see in certain scenarios it's not entirely helpful. So, of course, if anybody's going to be in this camera, they're going to have to walk through that front door. So instead, what I like to use is that line crossing search. So you actually draw a line and you specify the direction that you're interested in. So I'm interested in people coming into the office. So I'll keep the arrow facing this way, but I could easily just switch it over. So as I scroll down, it's starting to show me all results of anyone who's come into the office and sort of walked in that direction. And what I can do is change my search filters as well. So I can say, you know, the incident that I'm looking for has happened with 2 or more people. You know, it was a crowd of people. So show me any results where at least 2 people have walked in at the same time. So here we can see 3 people have walked in, and it shows me these hyper zooms of each person at the bottom there. So if I wanted to investigate further on a particular individual, I could just search over here. So that's kind of how we, a little in-depth or a little understanding of line crossing. But if we wanted to go that step further, you know, this may be a restricted area where employees are not allowed to enter, you know, only vehicles are allowed in this space, which is what we often see with manufacturing. You'd probably want to be a little bit more proactive rather than reactive. And to do that, you'd set up an alert here at the bottom corner. So all of our alerts will live on this page, no matter which product you're dealing with. So you can see we start with the camera, and we have all these possible options of, you know, alerts that we could set up. So we could do line crossing, as we just did a minute ago, or we could do something like loitering, which is, you know, what Lee mentioned earlier as well. And to set it up, it's really simple. The idea of Command is that you don't need to be technical. You don't need to be a camera expert to navigate through the platform. So you can see here, it's just asking me, you know, numerous questions until I've filled out this alert page here. So which camera am I interested in? So I could go back to that individual camera and search for London. Ooh. And select this camera and hit done. And now it's asking me, you know, am I interested in people or vehicles? Sometimes it might be vehicles that shouldn't be in certain areas either. So we can select either of the two. And then we want to set up the area. So which part of the frame should we not be seeing any loitering? So, you know, we could just do a general people detection, but the loitering just means that, you know, you're setting a specific amount of time. So I could say, you know, it's fine if people are on the other side of the door, but on this side, there shouldn't be any people detected. So, you know, I could set that to 10 seconds, or I could just set that to 30 seconds, whatever suits me. So I'd hit done. I have my recipients as well. So of course, you know, I'm setting up this alert. So I've got the option to choose how I wish to receive it. Or I could actually pick another user within Command. So if I think of, you know, a colleague, for example, let's pick my manager. We can actually add him to this list as well. So we could say, you know, I need to be notified by email, but my manager Dimi needs to be notified via the mobile app, which is a really great application. It's free and available on Android and iOS. So that's another way of receiving those notifications. So I'd hit done and it would ask me for a name for this alert. But you can see it's pretty simple to just set that up. Right, so just going back to that London camera that we were on earlier, you know, let's say that we've had an incident, you know, there's people who have entered this area where they shouldn't have, and it's resulted in an incident. How do we actually go about archiving that footage, you know, bringing it away from the platform, downloading that onto my personal laptop, and then being able to send that off to the correct individuals? It's quite a straightforward, you know, process. So we've made it really interesting or really simple for you to be able to find the footage. You're not having to search through hours and hours. You can use these filters to quickly search for what you're looking for, and say, you know, we've actually found the incident of this individual, and you know, she's come in, she's not looking, and she's entered an area which is prohibited and shouldn't be coming into, only for vehicles. So in terms of archiving, the way we would go around that is by using this little snippet tool here. And this is where, you know, Lee mentioned you can actually drag the orange bars to say which times you want that archive to start and stop. So, you know, we can go back in time, we can, you know, rewind that slightly, and we can actually start to create that archive clip here. So I can shorten that video and give that some notes. So I could actually say employee entering vehicle area, And from here, if I wanted to, and this kind of goes on to the next point, but we could blur that face here. So what it's actually giving me the option to do is, if this was an incident with a secondary person or multiple people, we could actually choose which face we wanted to blur and which we wanted to keep. So we will, we will keep one for blurred faces for this example. And then we go to that next step where we can actually create an incident. And what an incident is, as Lee mentioned, is essentially just a folder where you've got multiple archives stacked together. So it keeps it nice and neat and tidy. When you've got to share an incident, usually you have more than one camera. Usually you have, a couple of different things that have led up to that incident. It's a nice way of being able to share that all in one folder rather than sending individual videos that might get lost, and is also quite confusing as to what goes first and where. So either we can, add it to an existing folder, or we can create our new one. And it's as simple as just, giving it a name. So, if this was, this, employee entering this area, we could just say prohibited area. Oh gosh, I can't spell when people are watching me type prohibited.
We're not judging you at all, Dee.
Anyways, you get the idea, right? So I'm not going to try and spell that whilst we're here, but we've got the idea that we can just type what
How
we
about
want.
not allowed?
Oh, that's a nice one. I can do that. There you go. That makes it easier. Thank you. So we can create that new incident here, and you can see that that's been ticked. So we just save that. And what that's going to do now is, download that, bring that video from the camera and save that in the cloud. And we can see the duration, the size, and if we wanted to go that step further, we can even move where the timestamp should be. So, we've got that watermark where it says when this video was captured, we can just change that if needed. So here you go, that archive's been initiated, and now that will live in a couple of different places. So we've either got archives that are specific to this camera, so all archives that have happened, here, and here we can see we've got two different archives. So we've got one which is where the individual's face is not blurred, and then one where it is blurred. So it's just gonna retrieve those now. And the second place it will live is in this archives box, which is any archive from any camera. So it's just all archives that are visible here. Now, if we wanted to move to incidents, that would just be the bucket below. And this is where, we have a list of all the incidents that have occurred where people have combined multiple videos together. So we can see this is the one I just created, but here are some examples of ones that have been created earlier. So for example, someone's come into an area that they shouldn't have, and now there's been an accident. In this case, they're saying it's a suspicious slip and fall. And we can see that there's two videos here. So one camera here, and then one with three cameras combined. And what it allows you to do is actually put some notes in each of these folders, and we can play those videos as well. So we actually have, obviously this is just a fake example of employees pretending to do a suspicious slip and fall. But we can see here, oh wow, that's quite a fall. We've got this individual who's fallen, and then what it's going to do is going to jump to the second video, and it's going to show us with a combination of different angles how this looks. So it keeps it nice and neat. And if somebody wanted to share that, they could just hit these three dots here and share that across to the correct people. Now, I only have viewer-only access, so I wouldn't be able to share that. And that sort of adds to the next point that we'll touch upon later on with access. We can also see those same hyper zooms of each person, and then vehicles as well. If this was an outdoor incident, that would also be quite handy if there was a crash between a person and a vehicle. Okay, now moving on to AI search. So AI search is quite a new feature that we've released. Doing really well. We see a lot of customers really liking this feature. And again, it's just the ability to find footage without having to be too technical and just making it as simple as possible. So PPE, as we mentioned, is something that is very important within manufacturing. So some examples that I've seen customers use here is they want to see which people are coming in, and they should be wearing their PPE equipment, which is a high-vis jacket, for example. So person, we'll not just look for any person, they'll have to be doing something similar to person carrying a box, wearing a high vis. So this is going to give us some better results. And now what this is doing is scanning all of my cameras across all different sites, from the US to the UK, Sydney, everything that I have access to, and showing me anything that has a box and a person who's wearing a high vis. Now, like Lee said, this is AI, so it's not going to be 100% accurate. We might see some places where details are slipped, but overall it's a pretty good level of accuracy. Even at night, we can see it's able to pick up these people wearing high vis jackets and carrying a box together. And that's kind of a key word is we can actually now, it's great to see who was wearing a high vis, but what we would want to see, if I was working in manufacturing and was a manager, I would actually want to see who has come onto the premises and isn't wearing a high vis jacket. And this was something that was really, really highly requested by a lot of our customers. And we managed to build it, which was really impressive. So what we want to do is modify this sentence and say, person carrying a box, let's make it a box, not wearing a high vis. And I believe that this only allows me to share one tab at a time. But if you have Google open, a good example is, you try and type this statement into Google, and it really struggles to bring up the results. It just sees high vis and it tries to show you pictures of high vis. It doesn't understand the word not. So this becomes really powerful. Google is one of the world's most popular search engines. So we would expect it to have accurate results or understand the query. So it's really impressive to see that Vicata have managed to pull this off in such a short amount of time.
And you can see that no one's wearing a high vis, are they?
No one's wearing a high vis.
Pretty accurate, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I think the accuracy levels on this search are really great. So of course, it's great to see this retrospectively as we are doing now. But if we want to go back again and be a little bit more proactive, we can actually set up an alert, and we can see here it's a new one where we just follow that exact same workflow. We specify the specific camera that we're interested in. We might just say all cameras for this scenario, and we type that same query in. So person carrying a box, not wearing a high vis, and hopefully it should show us those same results. But this time it's going to estimate how many alerts it believes we're going to get on a daily basis. So you can imagine this is an office, not a manufacturing or distribution center. So there are a lot of people who are walking around with boxes and not wearing high vis jackets. So it's not going to be it's going to give me quite a lot of results. I probably don't want to receive 174 alerts daily. And we can see here, we can actually go a step further. So here it's still kind of getting a little bit confused, but what I can say is this is exactly what I'm looking for. Someone carrying, a couple of things. And what I'm going to do is select this more like this button. And now it's going to use my query and this image to pull more results like this. And then hopefully we can see, a new number of estimated alerts. So this is great. So it's more people coming in, entering, and they've got these boxes in their hand. So we can actually say, hey, I want that to be more precise. So I want to receive less results every day, or I want this to be more broad and I want to receive more results every day. So this is really handy. And it's something that you've just got to play around with and see what results you get. Again, it's the same recipients settings, so adding other users, and then we've got the notification schedule, which I don't think I touched upon earlier, but this is applicable to all alerts. So maybe you don't mind if someone's coming in over the weekends because you know that there won't be, anyone in danger at that time, but Monday to Friday, you absolutely need to know if this happens. So this is where you can change any of those settings.
Or it might be the weekend you want to look because
Oh yeah,
there's no health and safety staff in, and the weekends you have a feeling that they may be flaunting the rules. So
that's it.
it can work both ways, can't it?
That's it. Yeah, exactly. So you've got the option to just keep that as it is or customize it, which is very simple. So just dragging the area and then repeating on these days like so. Okay. All right. The last point I would like to touch on is the GDPR. So I believe we started with the audit log. So let's jump there. So, we've got all of our products here, which we navigate to, but we've also got this admin section, which is just managing the settings of the platform itself. So I've got limited permissions, which is why I can only see the audit log by choice. So if we click to the audit log, this is essentially, if I clear all options, this is essentially any time anyone has done anything on the platform, whether they've logged in, they viewed a camera, and you can see my name's popping up as it should, as I've been demoing the platform. So it can be quite a lot of information, but the search bar here allows you to target a specific user, a specific device, a specific device type. So you might only be interested in cameras, for example. Or, like Lee said, you can actually go that step further and say, I want to see when somebody's been viewing some cameras and they shouldn't be. So here's a list of all the different things that we can actually hone into. So for example, if we wanted to see any history viewed or a live stream that started, so someone's just kind of sat there watching live stream video, we'll click on myself for this example. So you can see here, this is when I was watching that stream video, and we can actually see that I watched that for 31 seconds during this demo. And that shows me exactly the device, exactly what time, who it was, what email, and we can actually just jump specifically to that time. So rather than trying to remember that time and date that I watched it, we just go straight in and we can actually view that stream video. So it will jump back to that time. So really, really nice, handy way of just navigating through the platform, making sure that the people who should be watching it are watching it. And just, really keeping an eye. So the audit log is a very powerful tool that we have today.
Because I think it is a worry that a lot of people have about voyeurism. So people using cameras to watch people and what they're up to in two different ways. One, people are just interested in watching people, but other people think, well, are the management watching me to make sure I'm doing my job? And that's not really what it's there for. It's there to make people safe, ensure things don't go wrong, improve quality, those kind of things. So it's quite important.
Exactly. Yes, that's it. Thank you. So audit log is always something that comes in very handy, especially with a platform, like Vicada, where you can do so many cool things as well. So the only other thing I'd touch upon, which is I'm keen to show you, is if I go to my specific user. So here we have a list of all users in the platform, and we select my name, and here we can see, I don't have the right permissions to be able to modify, but I can see which sites, and we've actually split this up. So these were the sites that I had access to earlier. We had all these cameras in the US in our HQ, and then also London and so on, Mexico, Sydney. And we can actually see that my permissions change slightly depending on the location. So for example, London, where I'm based, I am a site admin, which means that I get to make certain changes, but I can't actually make those same changes in our HQ. So, that just shows that you're not limited to only having one level of access per a site. If there's areas where I'm a manager of one distribution center and not the other, I can have control of those cameras, but not to the other site. So it's really about giving them access to the correct areas and the correct cameras, which is a really nice thing that we offer. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to show you another feature that I would like to, but I can just explain it, which is something called a privacy and security disclosure. So that would live in our privacy and security tab here if I was an org admin. And essentially what that allows you to do is actually print a sheet or a QR code that redirects you to this web page where you can see what the video is actually being used for. So a good example is essentially just showing you the list of analytics that are turned on. So by default, everything is turned on. Vicada is an opt-in process where you've got to opt into audio, any analytics, AI search to be able to use it. So essentially a privacy and security disclosure is a really nice way of just ticking the analytics that you're using, being able to display that in a public place. So if anyone has concerns, you've actually got it displayed that this is what our CCTV is being used for. And if you want to find out more information, here's our own privacy policy, or the correct contacts that you can speak to if you have any concerns. So that's also a really nice touch that I just thought about, which I thought would be nice. Lee, is there anything else that I may have missed?
No, I think because we did the blur piece anyway, didn't we, when we did the archive? So I think we've covered that piece off. So we're going to go back to our presentation now. So
okay, I'll
carry on where we're going to talk about access control. So first thing we're going to talk about is first person in. So I just need to grab my screen again. Share screen and pick the right screen. So we're back to our presentation again. So we're going to talk about access control, and one thing we're going to talk about is first person in. This is again pretty unique in access control. I don't know many other systems that allow you to do this, but it gives you some really good control over what's happening on your system. So what first person in is about is making sure that, say, a supervisor's in before other staff are allowed into a space. It could be in a retail store that a particular person's got to be there before the doors open and allow members of the public in. So you can do it, in different ways. So a supervisor in before the staff get in there, or it could be somebody who's responsible for safety or first aid as in place again before that door is open for anyone else. And what you do is you create a group and you put the people that are allowed to be the first person in a group. And then when you actually create your effectively schedule for that door or that gate or however it's controlled, they are allowed to go in and no one else is allowed in until they're in. The other thing you can do is restrict access for a delay time as well, because it might be, like the first aid or somebody with some specific safety requirements needs 15 to 20 minutes before they can start letting people in because they need to get set up in the environment. So what you can also do in that schedule is say one of this group need to be in, but also they need 30 minutes before anyone else is allowed in. So we can control that access and flow into an area really, really granularly and make sure people are protected. The next thing is, restricting access, because you might want to restrict access for different reasons. So one might be that you want to ensure that people are adequately trained. So you can create groups within Active Directory that say whether people have got specific training, and we can actually use Active Directory as a repository for all the information about access rights. So we can say anybody who's got these particular training groups are members of, they're allowed into these areas. So you can ensure that people are fully trained before they go. You can also make sure that people have got all the PPE and they're wearing it before they go into those areas as well. It's a little bit more of a challenge, doing it from an access control perspective. But remember, we've got cameras now that actually interact with the access control. So we could set one of those AI alerts that's watching a particular door where people need to wear PPE before they go in. And if somebody does go through that door, we can actually get an alert proactively to tell us someone's just gone into the space and they're not wearing the appropriate PPE. We can also talk about specific locations. There might be certain places around the site we don't want people to go in. Might be safety, might be security. Commonly on traditional sites, we might have got comms rooms where we've got computer equipment that we don't want anybody getting into other than people who are members of a particular group. So we can restrict access to specific locations quite easily with it. And again, have an audit trail on it. Also, because of the cameras, we can actually go through the events and see what happened as well. So it's not just, Fred's gone into that door. We actually can see Fred going in that door and what he's done when he's gone through there as well. We can also restrict by time, so certain people can go into certain places at certain times, so we can restrict it down to the time as well as the location. But one thing that's quite important nowadays is lockdowns. So I'm not sure if everybody's familiar with Martin's Law, and it comes on the back of a number of terrorist attacks that happened, and people effectively became injured or potentially lost their life because protected by the location. So they didn't have the appropriate first aid in place, or they couldn't stop the perpetrator of that terrorist act getting to those people. So lockdowns are becoming even more important. You'll see some real changes with schools. We're seeing a lot of schools talking about putting lockdown capabilities into their access control environments. So safeguarding is a critical one. Safeguarding of children is one thing, but in reality, we need to safeguard all our staff. So it's our responsibility when they're at work that we protect those staff. So safeguarding the staff is just as important. But also we might want to close off an area. So we may have a water leak or some issue in a particular area. And what we might want to do is close that area off for a period of time. And again, we can restrict access for a period of time to an area if we want to. We also might want to allow emergency teams still to have access to an area closed off. If it was a flood, we might want to get some of the plumbing team to get in, to fix the problem. Or it could be we've got a fire and we've got our own internal fire crews and they want to get to that site, or we want to get the external fire crews in and we're effectively escorting them through. So we can actually set up particular people that can actually go through a lockdown scenario so they can still get through. And when we do a lockdown, we also lock down all the press to release buttons. So even if you've got one of the big mushroom green buttons to press, they won't work because we want to restrict access. And having a button there, is going to make it too easy for someone to circumvent that lockdown. So we actually stop those press to release buttons working during a lockdown. So we can do a perimeter lock, but still allow the emergency teams through in either direction. And if it's one side where they don't have a reader, they can actually use their phone with the Pass app to actually get through doors to move forward if they need to. But we're doing these lockdowns for two things. One is for security, because we may have got a person on the site, could be a terrorist attack or some other form of security issue. We might want to lock down the perimeter because of that, or it could be from a safety perspective because something's happening in our space and we don't want any staff moving into that area and becoming casualties because of the danger that we've got in that space at the moment. The other thing is we can actually link this to an alarm activation because Verkada again has an intruder alarm platform, and we can link it to an alarm activation. So if the alarm is activated because someone's broken in, we can actually lock all the doors and contain them, or contain them in the area that they're in. So we can actually lock them into a space so they can't damage things, can't steal things because they can't move out of that space as well. And I thought it's quite important to add to it that it's not just access control on its own, it's this integration with CCTV, integration with intruder alarm that makes it more powerful as you go forward with the solution. Roll call. So we all have problems making sure that everybody's safe. So if you've got a fire or other type of emergency, we really want to know who's on site. Are they safe or are they not safe? And that's quite a critical thing for us to know. And roll call allows us to understand who's on site. We can also subdivide the site into areas on the site as well. We need to be able to see them come in and go. So we need to have readers on all of the entry and exit points for this to work. So if they can just walk in, then walk out another way without being seen, it's going to be quite difficult. So we need to make sure we create this entry point and exit point piece so we can capture them. But once we've actually run a roll call, we can see who's safe, who's not, because these are people that have come onto site, but they haven't left. So we know exactly who it is. The other thing we can do is automatically send that roll call data to all the fire marshals. So we can send it out to them by email, lands on their phone, and they've got access then to the system to be able to see, who's they're responsible for and make sure that they deal with them. We can also then go through and mark those individuals safe. It's quite easy. You've got a little button to press, mark safe, and you can mark all the people safe, and should be quite quickly then reduce the number of people that who have at risk, so you can focus on just the ones at risk rather than having to try and deal with everybody and work out where everybody is. We can also provide a check-in post. Or multiple, if you've got multiple assembly points. So we can have a post that's got a reader on it, and they can go up and use their badge. So they walk up with their access control badge and touch it, or they can use their app on their phone, the Verkada Pass app as well, or even a fob if you want to. We can provide keyring fobs. And when they touch it, because we've set it up as that's actually marking them safe, automatically they can mark themselves safe as they walk up to that assembly point, and make sure, again, your list is checked off really quickly on there. The other thing is we might want to split it by department, so we can actually group users together, because we may have a site that's got maybe 2,000 users on it during the daytime, because it's all day shift operations. It would be very difficult for one person to check everyone out. So what we can do is break it down by groups, so it makes it much easier for the people that are managing the assembly points and checking people safe can go through their particular groups of people, or it could be split into multiple assembly points, and again, it's split by department or assembly point for that case as well. So that's me finished talking for today, other than questions and answers at the end. So we're back over to Dee to do a demo on those components. So I shall stop my sharing. And if anybody's got any questions on any of those pieces, just let me know.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, so back into Verkada Command, but this time we're focusing on access control. So it's as simple as, just hopping over to the next tile, and now we're in our landing page. So essentially with this page, we can see essentially all the different doors that I have access to, so all the different readers, and these are a list starting again from the US all the way down to London. So we'll jump back to that London door, and here we can see, that associated footage of that camera. And obviously this is the door that is being access controlled. So there's a reader on the outside and a push to exit button on the inside. So I'll start off by talking about first person in, and then we can touch upon restricting access to the correct people. So let's start off with first person in. So we can see here, we've got the associated footage. As I scroll down, we can see every person who's come in. Yes, we have got a door where you can force it open because it's broken, so that needs fixing. So please excuse that at the moment. And if we want to get to that,
alerting that it's been forced open as well. So
exactly,
and some people don't even know if people are forcing their doors open.
That's it. Yeah, alerts for essentially anything in access control. So that's always helpful and something that we need to fix soon. So in terms of first person in, so if we jump to the schedule here, and if we edit this schedule, we can actually select a specific time frame, and here we've got that first person in option here. And like Lee mentioned, this is essentially a way of ensuring that we've got either a supervisor or somebody who's been trained in the specific part of the building first before others are allowed in. So you can see here, these are who do I want those supervisors to be, which group of people. Now, obviously, you would want to have a specific group, which is just filled with those employees that are supervisors, right, or are trained. So, for example, if I pick IT, and then I can also give them a grace period. So I can say they have to be in there for at least half an hour before the next user who isn't part of IT to be able to come in. And this is really useful because we've seen that a lot of areas specifically that are high risk require either a manager or someone with higher a level of authority to be in there first before the rest of the employees can enter. And this is very simple. You're still selecting, a specific time of day, and it's a very simple, kind of just using it as you would with the rest of the platform. So not having to relearn anything here. So that's first person in, quite straightforward to understand. And now we move on to, restricting access. So just general, access control. How can we ensure that the right people have access to the right spaces? So here we can see, that's that front door. And if I scroll down, it's just telling me a little bit of information so that this door is access controlled indefinitely. And right now, the status tells me that the door is not only locked, but it's closed. Well, it should be both at the same time. But I can, for example, unlock that door remotely from home, and now that door is still closed, but it's unlocked, so anybody could walk through at that time. And if I scroll down, as it should be, we can see that this is all audited. So it says web unlock, created by myself, and here we have the associated footage. So, really clever way of just being able to really show off how the video and access control integrate with each other quite nicely. So if I wanted to have a look at the access, here we've got, which access level has access to this specific door. But an easier way to understand it is by coming to this tab here on the side, which is access users and groups. So essentially, these are a list of all granted users within Verkada Command. And how it works is we don't let specific individuals have access to one door. So you can't just have, your front door where only Lee and Dee have access to that door. They've got to be put into a group because it's quite rare where you've just got individuals, one or two assigned to one particular door. And also it just keeps it quite neat as well to be able to see what category they lie in. So if we jump to the groups page here, we can see a list of all the different groups that have been created. So we have, all employees of Verkada. Then we split that into IT, London employees. And what we can do is actually assign these to specific doors. So, if we go back, we can either create our own group here, where we can add individual users, or we can start to use things like identity providers. So with Verkada, we integrate with Okta and Microsoft Entra. We have this little symbol here on the side, which indicates that this account is being managed through the identity provider. So either you're using Okta or Entra, and essentially, if somebody comes into the business, they're automatically added to your Active Directory, which is, say Okta, for example. Then we can automatically put them, you put them into a specific group, they'll automatically be added to Verkada as well. And the same works when they leave. So if you have employees that maybe have been suspended or have just left the business, you don't have to worry about removing them from command or revoking their access. They're automatically removed from the system as well. So it's a really nice way of ensuring that only the correct people have access to the right places, and also just managing all of your users. So when we start to get to 2,700 employees, it gets quite messy to know who, shouldn't be in this list and who should be. If you have something like Google, where, you still want to be able to map the two together, it's not the end of the world. We have got alternative options such as importing users in bulk. So, either adding them through a CSV or, using APIs. So that's where it gets a little bit more complicated, but you're not limited to not being able to manage your users either. And here we can see all the different ways that they have access to the system. So mobile NFC is, using your Apple Wallet, being able to, authenticate that it is you using either Face ID or your fingerprint, and then tap that phone against the reader. We have a remote unlock, so being able to unlock a door through your phone. Slightly different to Bluetooth unlock, where the phone is actually connecting to that reader. And then that individual has a key card. They may have an entry code, so maybe a 4 or 6 digit number that they enter to let them know that it's them. And then we also do license plate recognition, which is a form of access control, whether employees are driving in the morning or only certain vehicles are allowed in restricted areas.
I did make a comment, but I forgot to unmute myself, so you didn't hear me.
Oh,
And
sorry.
also Apple Watch as well.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, mobile NFC is also supported with Apple Watch. So a really kind of sleek way of entering the building is tapping your Apple Watch to a reader. But yeah, this is a really nice way of just making sure that the user is authenticated on their phone as well. So if their phone is stolen, for example, the person who's stolen that phone still wouldn't be able to get access to the building, because they would have to unlock the phone through Face ID or with a passcode, for example. Okay, moving on to the next piece, which was lockdowns. So that will live again in our access control homepage. You can see we have this lockdown tab here at the top. And lockdowns, as Lee explained very nicely, are very simple to understand. All that you're kind of controlling or determining is essentially who should still be allowed to move within what doors. So here's the workflow, and you'll see this quite a lot within Vicada. A lot of the steps are just workflows. So again, hopefully not too complicated. So if we were to label this our manufacturing lockdown, and we may have a specific message that people would be able to see either on their phone or when they're using the web browser when the lockdown is actually activated. So might have we'll just put test for now, and we hit next, and now this is going to ask which doors should be locked if somebody activates a lockdown. So you can select particular sites or particular doors. So I'll just choose for this scenario so you can see. And we'll say that, hey, maybe our main door should be locked. And then this is quite important, who can actually activate those lockdowns. Maybe you wouldn't want all employees to be able to do that. So, for example, we'll just put London employees. Who should be able to deactivate that? Maybe the same group of people, so you can copy from activated groups. And then who can unlock doors? So you may have security on site, or management. It's people who should be able to still freely walk around the building. So here you would choose that specific group as well. So you might say IT again, or probably not IT. If we had a security guard, maybe this after hours crew, they would be able to continue freely walking. I won't save that because otherwise we don't want everybody to press these buttons. And in terms of being able to activate a lockdown, it's done in a couple of different ways. So either you have our mobile app. It can either be the specific access control app or the general overview app. You can activate a lockdown from either of those. Of course, you can do it from command as well. So we have all of our lockdowns here, selecting a lockdown to activate. Or you can start to integrate it with our alarms piece that we have here. So with alarms, you've actually got the option to either press a panic button. So if we think about buttons that are maybe hidden underneath desks, that would activate a lockdown. Or you could use the 24/7 professional monitoring services as well. That would also activate a lockdown if they detect a threat. Right, just moving on to the last piece now, which is roll call. So roll call will live in our reports page here. So you can see we have a list of all the different reports that are created, and you can see we have roll call, which is still currently in beta. And essentially how it works is in the event of a fire, the roll call will tell you who is still currently in the building and who is left. Now, it is important to mention that in an ideal scenario, you would want to have in and out badging. And what that means is that you tap your badge to enter the building, but you also have to tap to leave. And that's where it gives a much more accurate count of who's in the building. So if we think back to our London front door, we have a press to exit, where you just hit a button and you leave. And now the system doesn't actually know who's in the building and who's left, because we're not telling the system who we are when we press the button to leave. So if you really want this to be accurate, you need to have badge in and badge out.
But that's only on the entry and exit.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So if you wanted to run a roll call, we've got our London roll call here as an example. We've used a different door as our exit door. But here we can see how many people have used the upstairs door. So we can see that main entrance, only 17 people. And the reason is we've recently expanded our office. So we now have a 16th floor, and this hasn't been updated. So we definitely have more than 17 employees today. But this is just everyone who's used that top floor. So I can see, 17 people are included, and out of 17, all of them are missing. And, if we were carrying out a real fire security roll call now, once we've reached our muster point, I can say, okay, I can see Caroline Wong. I'm going to actually mark her as safe, and that will remove her from this list and move her into the safe list here. And here's where we have those specific groups as well. And we can also see who has actually marked this person as safe. And we can go back to marking them as missing. But we can see DP has less than a minute ago has marked this individual as safe. So yeah, as Lee mentioned, either your exit door or, you've got hopefully a muster point would automatically move these users into the safe area. So even though they've tapped in this morning, the system is very confident that they have left the building. And once we end that report, we can actually see that this will move into the second section here at the bottom, which is our historical reports in the last 7 days. If we wanted to create a new report, we would hit the templates button here and create a new template. And we could give this a name. So we could say manufacturing, oh my gosh, manufacturing, oh my goodness, roll call. And essentially what it's asking us is, first of all, where are you in terms of all of your sites? And how do you wish to start your time format here? So it's quite important. Do we wish to start this, say, 24 hours ago, if we know that we're going to have maybe employees working overnight or late hours or early morning? Or do we want to start it at a specific time of day? So in an office environment, for example, that we had, I wouldn't expect anybody to be in the office overnight. So we could put this maybe at 4 or 5 a.m. just to be safe. And then we would choose our time zone. If we had any sites, overseas or in different time zones, this is where this gets very important as well. So essentially, you're just choosing your exit doors. So how do we know that people have left? So that would be the main door. And how do we know that people have entered? We can't select that same door, as I said. But so we'd, for this example, we'd just choose our front kitchen door. And then it's who do we want to notify? So you've actually got, specific employees where they'll receive a text message. So I can select myself. And now anytime that roll call is run, I will actually get a text message, an SMS sent to my phone. So really, really useful report here that's created. And yeah, hopefully you've seen that it's quite simple to run and use as well. Right, so I will stop there. Unless Lee, there was anything you wanted me to touch on.
No, I think we've covered everything, and we've got just under 20 minutes left if you've got any questions. So if I just, in fact, I'll need to bring my presentation because I've got our contact details on there as well. So I shall get that ready for afterwards. So that's where we were. So we were on our demo. And I'll just jump over to the screen. So Q&A now. So if anybody's got any particular questions, just type them in the chat and we can go through those that we've not covered off so far. Hopefully we've covered all the areas that we talked about in the presentation. So covering off all the different pieces, and Dee and I worked to make sure that it was focused on manufacturing logistics. So hopefully it met your requirements today. If you've got any questions specifically, just ask us. If you don't at the moment, you want to let us know later. There are contact details. So Dee Panchal and Dee's email address, and there's also my details and my email address. So if you've got any questions you want to ask afterwards, let us know. If you want to know more about the system, I know we've got at least one, if not two, users of the system already on the session today. I've also got a lead from one of them as well, so somebody's asked to know more about it. So we've been successful in one thing today, finding a new potential customer for Vicada and what we've done today. But if you've got any questions at all, just ask and we can do that. Okay, so Mike's saying it was very helpful. So, and Mike, you are a user, so you're already using the system. But I'm sure there are things you've seen today that you didn't know the system could do, especially because you're predominantly using cameras and you've not seen any of the access control piece, have you, so far? Anything from you, Dee? I don't think we've got any questions. No one's typed other than Mike at the moment. So I think we might wrap up in a minute. Mike's saying it's clarified a lot, so which is useful. Yeah. So
yeah, that's really great to hear. Thank you.
So what we're planning to do is one of these sessions, maybe every quarter, just to go through some pieces. Now we've got quite a number of customers as well. What we might do is put together a customer-focused session every quarter that's in line with the new releases. As most people know, the releases like feature updates and things tend to come out once every quarter. So what we'll do is put together a piece to tell you about all the new things that are coming about. You know, a lot of people don't know about the AI search capability because it's only quite new. So what we're going to do is ensure everybody knows each quarter all the new things. So we might do it about a week after the new releases are put out, and we can explain each component and what it values to you. So if we've got no other questions, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Dee, for helping out with all those wonderful demonstrations. And again, if you've got any questions, you've got our email addresses, drop us a line and we'll catch up afterwards. And if you want to hang on afterwards when we shut things down, and then we'll just have a quick wash up afterwards. So thank you very much. I'll just stop sharing my screen before we shut things down. Thanks ever so much. Bye then.